So we've skipped ahead a little bit from the Battle of Jericho to this passage, and there's been some other events that have happened leading up to this point that are a little bit important to know, just to get an idea of what is going on here. So after Jericho, Israel went and they fought several other battles, and one of them they actually lost. And the reason for this loss was that during these battles, there was an individual who had taken things that were devoted to God as a sacrifice, that was devoted to destruction to God. And so as a result, God had punished them by no longer fighting with them in that sort of conflict. So they had to deal with that, and then they went out and fought the same opponent and won again. And I think in some ways, Joshua, they were always planning to do this kind of moment where they were going and reaffirming the covenant, listening to what was written down in the law, and recommitting themselves to that and to God as well. I think that was probably something that was always planned to be done at some point once they entered into the Holy Land, but it's very clear that with those types of things also going on, that they needed to be reminded a little bit of the expectation that God had placed for them. That was the reason they were inheriting this land. What the type of nation God was expecting them to be now that he was giving them this land and removing its previous occupants, which were described as being so wicked that they had to be removed from the very earth. So that is all kind of playing on back in here. And there are some interesting pieces in this passage. Joshua writes down a copy of the law, and this was something that Moses had required for their kings to do. This was something that Moses was saying that the kings should do, that they should write down a copy of the law, have it, meditate on it, and follow it. Now, Joshua is not a king, but it is clear that he is trying to be a godly leader, and in doing so, he's following that example that Moses commanded, and that idea that Moses had set up to maybe serve as an example for later generations as well. And I think all of this is important even for us. There are times, we won't necessarily go through the pomp and circumstance of this, but there are times when we need to recenter ourselves into what God has expectation-wise for us. Times where we need to re-examine our own lives and see where we're matching up to what is expected of us and where we're falling short, to offer prayers asking for forgiveness and get ourselves back in line with the standards that God has set for us as Christians. And that way, God is going to be able to more effectively work through us because we're going to be displaying the type of life that he wants everyone to live. And that is incredibly important because we can preach this message, we can preach about changing people's lives, but if they don't see that within us ourselves, then it really isn't going to matter at all. And so with that, I would like to invite you all to join me for our last worship song today.